Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing inspiration featuring the brand new Altenew 2025 release. I have 3 cards to share with you, and all of these feature some lovely new products from Altenew. I have just a few of the products from the release here, but you can check out the entire release in the YouTube description below. I'll have a link to that entire release. So first up is the Build a Garden set for May 2025. This is a part of a series of releases that Altenew releases every month. They have the Craft Your Life Build a Garden. They have some dies and that sort of thing. This month, this Tranquil Trail, wow, that is hard to say, includes this gorgeous stamp set. You can also choose to add on stencils and a die. And when you buy the entire bundle, you also get an Altenew mini blending brush. Next up is the Stencil art set for May 2025. This is called Ditsy Flowers Wallpaper. It is gorgeous, 7 pieces. You can see it comes with a guide showing how all of this will come together, gives you some color suggestions. I'll be using this in one of the cards today, and I'm actually combining it with the Tranquil Trail set for that card, and I'll be using the Tranquil Trail featured in the other 2 cards. Anyway, I cannot say that word, so I'm going to stop saying it. And we're just going to start out with the Ditsy Flowers Wallpaper. I'm starting out with stencil number 1, and I'm lining it up with a piece of paper that is the exact same size as the stencil. So it's actually a little larger than an A2 card. You will see the colors that I'm using on the screen here. This is mint chalk here. It is a beautiful kind of blue-green color. Now, these stencils are marked with numbers, and there are outlines of some of the images to help you line those up. In this case, I am taking the stencil, and every time I align it, I am aligning it with the lower right corner and lower edge of this piece of cardstock that I have below it. So you're going to see me work my way through this 7-piece stencil set. I have some gorgeous colors that I've pulled out, some beautiful warm yellows. This pink pearl and coral Bliss are some of my favorite pinks. And if you know, or you've been around here for a little bit, the new orange sorbet and apricot frost are some of my favorite oranges. They are just the perfect peaches. And so I'll be mixing a bit of that in. Now for the color combos, I'm using a lighter color on the lower layers of the florals, or the large open areas of the florals. And for the details, I am using the darker colors. Now, what you can't really see on screen is that as I'm doing my stenciling, I am referring to the guide, because some of these stencils have areas that you need to use more than one color on. And so for that case, I am taking some of the micro blending brushes from Altenew and filling in some of those really tiny floral centers. As you can see on this stencil here, I'm going in with the blue and the pink and the yellows. And then I'm coming back in with the mini blending brush to do the darker layers of this greenery with the evergreen. So just refer to your guide that's included in the packaging so that you don't go over that entire stencil with dark green and realize you've just colored in the centers of your flowers. I mean, you know, just a suggestion. So I finished off with some pistachio, and look at this gorgeous pattern that this puts together. And honestly, this was something that I was like, I can't cut this. I really wanted to do something fancy and special with this. But when I looked at it, I love how all of these colors came together in the same pattern and just really created a beautiful piece to use. Now, as I started these card projects, I really honestly did not know where I was going. So my goal was just to start out by creating some elements that I could then take forward and create cards with. So my goal isn't that I have cards in mind and I'm going to make this element, and this element to put those together. In reality, I was like, I'll just create the elements and we'll see where it all ends up. So now I have a couple of the stamps from the Tranquil Trail. I'm going to say that carefully. I have my Stamp Wheel 2.0. This has a large platform design. So that large branch and the bicycle, I can do these both at once. I have them on the flip plate, and I am using the Altenew Obsidian Black pigment ink to stamp these onto a large piece of white cardstock. I think it measures 8.5 inches by 8.5 inches, and you can see the beautiful stamped results that I got. Now here's the deal. This is a pigment ink, so this will stay wet longer than others, and if I were to go right into my stenciling, I would definitely smudge this. So I went ahead and used a heat tool to set that ink before I brought in the stencils. And I skipped showing you the stenciling for these. There is a guide with that Tranquil Trail stamp set that shows you how to layer up the stencils to add the colors and kind of gives you some card ideas and some suggestions for colors, so you can follow that. I went ahead and used that, and I colored in my bike and my floral stem here, and now I'm pulling this away from my grip mat, and I'm cutting these apart so that I can run them through my die cut machine. So I'll just quickly trim that down with my scissors and use the coordinating dies to die cut each of these pieces. Now, here's something I really love about this large floral stem. Number one, it's huge and it's gorgeous and it's beautiful, and you could do this in a variety of colors, but look at how the die cuts out all of those inner pieces. It creates a really beautiful, intricate piece that is so delicate and looks great on a variety of styles of cards. Now, I also die cut out the bike here, which I think is so adorable, and I have that ready to go. And now that I have some elements, it's like, okay, let's get to card making. So here's the few elements that I created. As I was kind of lacking some creativity, I thought I'll just pick a color palette and we'll move forward with it, and we'll see where it goes. Before I kind of move into the cards, I'm going to stamp a few of these sentiments from the Tranquil Trail stamp set onto some white cardstock, and then I will use the coordinating dies to die cut those out. Once again, I'm using that Obsidian pigment ink, which will stay wet longer than usual. And so when I place these on to my die cutting plates and I add my top plate, I'm going to actually cover these with a piece of scrap paper so that any of that pigment ink that transfers will transfer to the scrap paper, as you can see here, rather than onto my plates. And that's a great way to kind of keep your plates clean and not transfer that ink. Sometimes we forget to do things like that, and then we have inky plates and then it gets on the next project. So just keep that in mind as you're using something like a pigment ink. Now, I die cut several of these bicycles from white cardstock. I'm adding liquid glue to the front of them, and I'm going to stack them up behind my stamped and stenciled piece here to give this some weight on the front of the card. So I went ahead and added the liquid glue to the front side of all the plain white die cuts, and then I took the stamped and stenciled one and laid it on top, and then picked up each subsequent layer to stack this up. I did 4 layers here, which is maybe a bit excessive, but you could do 2 or 3 if you wanted to kind of cut down on that. I have some Volcano Lake cardstock. It's actually an A2 card base at this point, but I am going to trim it down later. And I'm adding some liquid glue to the back of this large floral stem and adhering it along the top side of this A2 card base. I'm then going to take this, flip it over, and use a guillotine style trimmer to trim this off. This will give me a nice clean edge along the card front and along the die cut, because I am going to use pieces that I trimmed off of this die cut to fill in the rest of the card. So you can see I have this large piece here that was trimmed along the top there of a nice clean edge, and then I can place this along the bottom edge of the card. It's still hanging off the right edge a little bit, and I'll trim that again with my guillotine style trimmer to create a nice clean edge. You can see I also have that Have a Beautiful Day sentiment from the Tranquil Trail set. I have that stamped and die cut there, and I'm planning on using that on this card. I did stack up a couple of plain white die cut layers behind that stamped sentiment, again to give this a little bit of weight and dimension on the front of the card. This card, and actually all of these cards, are pretty simple overall, but I do think that they are all striking in their own ways, and that's thanks to just some really beautiful products that I'm using. Now, in order to add a little bit of shine and kind of elevate the look of this card, I took some brushed gold cardstock from Altenew, and I adhered a strip kind of towards the center of that area where I'll be adhering my sentiment. So I'm just going to lay that down with some liquid glue. I'm using the grid mat that I'm working on to make sure I have that straight, and then I went ahead and trimmed off the excess and added my stacked up sentiment where it kind of comes into line with that brushed gold piece there. Now here is a look at this, and I ended up trimming this down just a little bit to about 4 inches by 5¼ inches, and I placed this onto a card base that I created with some pastel sunrise cardstock from Altenew. It's just a beautiful combination with that volcano lake and the pastel sunrise, and that finishes off this very simple but striking card. It kind of reminds me of like a Hawaiian shirt print. I don't know why. Maybe it does you too. You can let me know in the comments below. Now for card number 2, I'm taking that same large floral vine and I'm inking it up in some Altenew embossing ink and stamping it onto a card base that I created with the volcano lake cardstock. That's giving me a tone-on-tone look. You could use a colored ink for this, but I had this at hand and I just thought, well, I'll just use that. To kind of tie these cards together, I am going to be using that simple strip of brushed gold cardstock on each of these card designs. They also share a similar color palette, so that kind of ties this together and creates almost like a project suite of cards that really just are beautiful. When you do something like this, you can almost give them in a set as a gift, as a nice little kind of stationery set. So I'm taking my stacked up bike, I'm adding some liquid glue to the back and adding that along that brushed gold strip. And then I added the Ride More, Worry Less sentiment right over that front wheel. It is stacked up on a couple of layers. And once again, I'm going to take this and I'm just going to trim it down just a bit. I think I'm trimming about 1/8 of an inch off of each side. So once again, we're going to be left with a card front that measures 4 inches by 5¼ inches. And I'll add this onto a top folding or a horizontal white card base with some foam adhesive from Altenew, and that finishes off card number 2. I love this little bike. It would look so great in so many colors. A little yellow bike, a little turquoise bike. So much fun to experiment with all the different bike colors. Now this background, I had a hard time trimming it down, but I did. I used a rectangle, A2 size rectangle die to trim it down just a little bit and get the center portion. Now I could use this horizontally, which I think is beautiful. I am going to use some vellum over the center portion of that card front to just kind of mute it back a little bit and allow the sentiment to take center stage. But I decided to go ahead and create a vertical card because the first 2 cards were horizontal. And so I am adding, again, that brushed gold strip at an angle across this piece of vellum that's trimmed slightly smaller than the card front. Then I will add my stacked up sentiment, again, using that Have a Beautiful Day sentiment, which is just absolutely gorgeous. It has a couple of plain white die cut layers behind it, but I'll add it to the vellum using some liquid glue. And then I used some foam adhesive to add my Ditsy Flowers wallpaper panel to a volcano lake card base. And I have the Altenew foam adhesive on the back side of this vellum panel right behind that sentiment. It's the 1/4 inch wide by 1/8 inch thick, so it sits up a little bit higher than your standard foam adhesive. And I use that to adhere the vellum panel to this completed card, and this is absolutely beautiful. I think all 3 of these cards have just such a striking look, but they're actually very simple, and they all feature that Tranquil Trail Build-A-Garden set, but bring in some other products as well, and I had so much fun creating. Honestly, when I started these, I was not inspired at all, but by the time I finished, the creativity was just absolutely flowing. Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the YouTube description below, so check there if you're looking for something in particular, or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I'll have a link there below as well, and over there you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. I did want to let you know also, this video is a part of a video hop happening here on YouTube, so you can check out all the details for that video hop celebrating this brand new May 2025 release from Altenew in the YouTube description below, and find other creators here on YouTube that are creating beautiful and gorgeous things to inspire you. As always, I want to say thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I am so glad you're here. I hope you enjoyed these projects, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here so you don't miss any of my paper crafting, card making, or Carissa Crafts live stream broadcast here on YouTube. Thanks again for watching. I'm so glad you're here. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.